the beginning of fall. I'm drinking my first pumpkin spice latte of the season, enjoying it. And with me while I sip on this very tasty beverage are three incredible guests from what I would say is one of the best programs, if not the best program in the country over the last 4 or 5 years. Why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Hi, guys. I'm Seva. Just graduated from, quote, Phil, the best program in the country, Duke mock trial. So I just graduated. I'm currently applying to law school, and things are going well.
I think we should put that on our website, the Phil quote.
I agree.
Yeah, we're going to attribute it to you, too.
I agree.
You can definitely do that. I give you my permission.
I'm Sonali. I graduated from Duke in 2020, and I am about to start as a 1L at Harvard Law.
Hello, I'm Eric. I went to The Ohio State University for undergrad and Duke for law school, where I just graduated, and I coached Duke's undergrad team while I was there. And if I pass the bar, I will be a lawyer soon.
So Eric, a minute ago, you mentioned that you used to be a competitor with Ohio State, and now you are Duke mock trials head coach. Give us the backstory for how you ended up as Duke's coach.
Yeah, here it is.
Okay, so my coach at Ohio State, his name is Alex Bluebond. He used to be like more involved with AMTA. He actually wrote the Dylan Hendricks case. So when he coached Ohio State, he was like just a litigator in Columbus. But before then, he went to law school at Duke, and he coached Duke back in like 2011, 2012. And he was actually the coach of Duke when they won the national championship. So that kind of, I don't know, I'm not going to say like that led me to pick Duke. I picked Duke because I visited a bunch of law schools and I like Duke the best, but I always knew that I wanted to coach mock trial wherever I ended up going. And, you know, it felt kind of like it made sense to go back to Duke. And yeah, that's how I ended up coaching Duke. I always knew I wanted to, like, from like, I think it was sometime early in senior year when I was realizing mock trial was about to be over, and I was really enjoying like taking part in kind of improving other people's parts and like teaching younger members of the team. I like realized I definitely wanted to coach in law school. So I would have coached wherever I went. It did help that like Duke is a more kind of like coach oriented program. So there was like a spot for me. There was some other law schools I was considering, like Michigan, for example, that are like very, very student run, and they're like very proud of that. And I don't know if I would have been able to coach if I went there. But again, that's not actually why. Look, I don't want to misconstrue this. People on the team at Duke think I picked Duke to coach. That's not it. Like, I picked Duke because I visited Duke.
Sounds like it's half true.
Sonali, Seva, tell us the real story.
Yeah, Eric was a very, I think that's mostly true. Eric was a very ambitious 1L. When he got there, we had like several coaches. A lot of them are 2Ls and 3Ls, people who have like been in the program for a while. And Eric, as a 1L, like halfway through the year, found a way to somehow create a coup. And he became head coach like halfway through his or a little bit past halfway through his 1L year, and then he was the head coach ever since.
It was a peaceful coup.
It was a peaceful coup,
but we had a long string. There was a long string of 3Ls being the head coach. I don't know, way back, but as far as I know, there had never been a 1L who was head coach. But by probably orcs of Eric's 1L year, he was head coach of the A team. And now that I'm about to be a 1L, I have no clue how he did this, because it's just so like spent so many hours on mock trial and not on school, I assume. I have no idea how you pulled it off. Like, it does not make sense to me.
Did you guys know who Eric was at that? I mean, I would assume you did, because Eric was like a legend at that point, still is.
So I didn't. I was pretty green. I think that some of the more mock-oriented people might have been more familiar with it. The only thing I knew about him was that he would wear this like trial by combat shirt all the time. I was like, what is that? And then someone explained it to me, and they were like, oh yeah, Eric is the 7th best attorney in the country. And I was like, wow, okay, all right.
Considering like how it played out with both of us being at TBC, it's like kind of funny, but we used to roast him constantly. Like, anytime he wore the TBC shirt, we were like, oh, TBC, we get it, Eric. Like, literally anytime he walked into practice with it. And now like there's no room to talk.
And that was the year we gave away the crew necks, right?
Yeah. I had a crew neck. It no longer fits me because I think I had like a law school 10 or 15 or something, but it was a really nice crew neck.
And even like the warm weather, you were still rocking the crew neck. Like it was like a 95-degree day with like high humidity, and you're
Yeah,
rocking
but there were
that crew
cold
neck.
months. There was cold.
Durham is
months.
surprisingly
It's not like Durham. Yeah, Durham has, well, okay, it's not like that cold, like from Ohio, but like it gets down to 20 sometimes.
Hey, look, I respect that. I have the trial by combat shirts from like every year, and like when people didn't pick them up or we had extras or something, I would get those too. So like I have the one that fits me. I have like a couple that are like 2XL that I wear sometimes, just like because like why not? If no one from like in the apartment, and so they're nice shirts, Eric. Maybe it's not because you wanted people to know about the fact that you were the 7th best attorney in the country. Maybe you just like the shirt. I like the shirts too. They're
I
nice,
liked it.
high
Yeah,
quality.
that's it. That's totally it.
So, Sonali, you said that you are about to start 1L year at Harvard.
Yeah.
Are you going to be competing? Are you going to be coaching undergrad? Are you going to be completely uninvolved with the mock trial circuit? What's the situation?
That's the question.
That is a question. Yeah, I'm not sure. I actually loved coaching. I coached the B team with Julia last year. And I loved it. I was like not expecting to like coaching. I thought I was going to be like just miss competing more than anything, but I actually had a really great time. But also I was like working from home. I had a ton of extra time, being remote. And so I was able to put a ton of time into it. And I know I'm not going to be able to do that this year. So I think I'm probably not going to coach. I hope to be around, maybe like judge some scrimmages and that kind of thing, because I really care about the program, but I don't think I'm going to coach. I don't know about competing. Half of my TBC field is at Harvard Law on the mock trial team. And
I know.
And Steven Becker. Yeah. And so they've reached out. And so I'm thinking about it. I haven't really decided. I kind of want to get my legs under me and then we'll see. But
well, I'd love to see you compete, Sonali, for you, but like for me, you're out, and maybe you could convince Steven and Matt Besman and all of those people to out too. That'd be awesome.
Let's all quit, guys.
Yeah, they should really focus on school.
Yeah, right. You've got my best interest at heart.
I do. So Seva, you were one of our 16 this year at Trial by Combat. Right. And obviously we know that Eric was the 7th best attorney in the country at Trial by Combat his year. He was a successful head coach, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Sonali had won Trial by Combat the year before. Did you feel a lot of pressure coming into the tournament? I almost felt like the vibes on all the different forums and confessions, people were kind of treating you like an underdog. That was my feeling, at least. How did you feel about that coming in?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I had like huge shoes to fill. Like Eric obviously is a legend, and then Sonali had just won. Like I literally had the biggest shoes possible to fill. Like it was like part of me was thinking like if I don't like win, then I will have disappointed at least like some person. But yeah, I mean, like I thought I was an underdog too. Like I honestly came in thinking like I'm gonna get 16th. This is gonna suck. Because honestly, like, I didn't do mock in high school. And like, I think like relatively, I was like inexperienced as an attorney. Most of my work was witnessing, as we know, and then, we know how that turned out at TVC. I did not score well as a witness. But most of my work was witnessing. So it was a lot of like that last year of just like working a lot on becoming a better attorney. And so like, I got it. Like, I thought I was an underdog too. And I was honestly really surprised at the eventual performance.
I was not surprised. I thought he was underrated. I knew he was going to do really well. Actually, before I went, I also thought I was going to get 16th. Like, I did not think it was going to go well. And he told me from the like months before it happened, he's like, no, you're going to win. And I was like, whatever, like, leave me alone. And I felt the same way when he was going, like, he was really down on himself. And I was like, no, you're going to do great. Like, I was not surprised, and I had no doubt.
No shade on any of the other of past year's competitors, but I predicted her to win.
Yeah. I mean, I thought after you won the online competition, because I went back and read all the trial by combat mock analysis is my drug posts to prep for this. I don't want to sidetrack us too much here, but you guys will get something. I don't know what the prize would be, but if you can tell me what the first line of Seva. It's all good. Seva, what the first line was on the like analysis for your part on impeachments. Do you remember what the first thing they said about you was? It might be the weirdest thing mock trial analysis or mock analysis is my drug has ever wrote on any forum ever.
Think about me?
Yes.
Oh, I have no idea.
Any guesses?
Any guesses? Was it something about Eric?
It wasn't. Good guess.
Okay, that's my best guess.
Or like big shoes to fill or something.
It was Seva is an incredibly clean advocate, period.
Very clean. You are.
That is what people tend to say on Facebook and things like that.
It could be the weirdest compliment to ever give someone.
Yeah, it's weird.
Just incredibly clean.
I know what you mean.
It's also funny because like he really was, Seva was kind of referencing this about how he like came along a lot like senior year, but Seva did come along senior year a lot. And before senior year, he was not known as a clean advocate. He in fact had a tendency to mess up and then make this like noise when he messed up on a part. Yeah, it was like boo, boo, boo. Like he would go like you just do it like really deep.
Can we insert a video of it?
Yeah, we could.
Yeah, we'll insert that here.
Yeah.
So Seva has like a really deep, like nice sounding voice. It's real clean when he's like doing something and it's working. It sounds great. And then you'll hear like boo, 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 boo.
It's so funny, like seeing that compliment. I'm like, wait, what? Like, like since when? Yeah, because it's the same thing. Like I've never considered myself like a particularly like quote clean speaker. So it's just a funny thing to see.
Yeah, it came along senior year. You became a lot more polished, like especially like your best couple of tournaments were like Orcs and Nationals. So it came along.
Well, I think part of it is because like your junior year, I was double speeching, and then Tristan Malhotra, who was on the bench with me, also was giving the other two speeches. And I think we just like took up a lot of probably your energy, Eric, and like it was just I don't know. It was our senior year, like so you really had to step up and became captain your senior year and spend a lot more time working on it. And I think like that could have happened earlier. It's just like it happened senior year because that's when you stepped into the leader role.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Seva, what's the plan for you this year?
Yeah, so I just took the LSAT a couple of weeks ago. So fingers crossed. We'll see how that goes. So I'm going to be applying to law school. And the biggest thing is that in October, I'm actually leaving to Japan to go teach English. So taking a gap year, doing some international travel, which is a little crazy right now to say. But yeah, that's the plan. So going out of the country to teach and then hopefully come back for law school.
So we're going to watch two opening statements. We're going to watch Seva's opening statement from the 2021 semifinal round against Benedemski at trial by combat. And then we're going to watch Sonali's opening statement from the final round at trial by combat the year before. Before we get into this, aside from just those two opening statements, which were obviously incredible and both of you did well at the tournament, Sonali, you also won the online opening statement competition that was hosted by UCLA Law in 2020, just a couple months before trial by combat 2020. What do you think Duke did so well over the last 2 years in terms of opening statements that just made them so good?
I think it's a couple of things. I think like, I guess I don't really know what other programs do, but I know at Duke, this comes from Eric mostly, like we think openings are the most important part of the whole trial. It like helps you pick up points everywhere else on the ballot if you have a really good opening that sets it out well. Eric was an opener at Ohio State and was also very good. And so I think it's like partially the time that goes into it, treating it as the very most important thing. Also, Eric is a really great writer. And I think we've like sort of figured out the structure and how to do it quickly, especially in TBC, like how to make it work really fast. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's those two things. A lot of it is definitely attributable to Eric.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that, the video came up. So I think like something that helped particularly, so first of all, at Duke, I think we might do something like this might be different than how other programs do it, but I think a lot of programs take their best speaker and they make them the closer. And I don't know. I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense because the closing only affects the closing will only affect its own score. Closing
It
will
makes
not
no
affect
sense, Eric. Say it like it is. It makes no sense.
It makes no sense. I mean, and I think it's like, for a lot of people, closing is like a status thing or something. People work up to being able to be the closer like their senior year. And like, I get that. Like, I wanted to do that too. And I remember like Blue Bond kept me at the opener as the opener. And like, I didn't love it. Like, I wished that, I wished at the time that I was the closer, but like, obviously now I understand better. Like you want the best opening that you can possibly have. It's much more important to have a great opening than a great closing because you need to set up your case, and it's the first impression of the team. And so like I think probably personnel wise, we emphasize openings more. We tend to like try to put the best and like the smoothest speakers and the best vocal performers kind of in openings.
I have that fight with my students all the time. They're like, I want to close. Like, but you don't understand. You're by far our best speaker. You need to open. And hard. It's a hard sell. And I'm sure it was really hard for you as a student to like you said, how Alex was keeping you opening. I'm sure it's hard for a student to swallow. But it really, I agree with you 100%. It's the most important thing in the round. It's important to put a strong speaker in that spot, particularly on the P side, because I think if you look at the numbers, the P opening is the hardest thing to win.
It's funny because it's like the thing that like we generally are best at. Like I think there's usually a D bias in mock trial most of the time. As a program, we generally get P better. We just like understand P, like P open, P crosses, like especially like defendant cross. Like we just get it. It's, I don't know, it comes easier to me and maybe people that I have influenced, I guess.
Part of the reason you have like students who don't want to stay in the open is I think like there's kind of like competing priorities of like, it's, closers tend to win awards, right? Like more often than openers. And so that's another thing I think that maybe is different at Duke than some other programs. Like we tell from the very first meeting with the freshmen, like we don't care about individual awards. Obviously I say this having won a big individual award, but I think like it was never a priority for me. It was like not something I was thinking about. And once you can kind of let go of that, then it's easier to be like, oh, I'm opening and this matters, So
yeah. TBC was my first time closing.
Yeah.
Because I had only ever done opens.
And senior year was your first time opening, I think.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Another thing that, by the way, I think that helped for TBC openings is we basically, in the lead up to TBC both years, we made these like open and close templates, which had a bunch of potential rhetoric that could apply in a bunch of different situations or whatever, and like a structure, because the goal was to spend like the least amount of time on stuff that we already had, like anything we could prepare before the 24 hours started. We wanted to do that. So we had like these like opening templates, which have like, opening if we do this theme, opening if we do this theme, and then like potential rhetoric if there's like a sympathetic witness, I don't know, whatever.
Right.
So that helped.
Our secrets away, Eric.
Eric,
no one's listening.
We can monetize those. Don't tell people.
No one's listening. It's all good. All right, let's get into this before Eric tells everyone your entire playbook.
Oh my God, I haven't watched this in a while.
All right, so before we get into this, Seva, I think at this point, everyone has seen this case at either Gladiator or at Combat.
Yeah.
And people we beat this case to death at this point, I think, by the time we're watching this. But in case someone has been living under a rock and has stumbled upon WatchMock for some reason, and they don't know anything about what they're about to see, can you give us really briefly a description of the case and what your theory of the case was?
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'm gonna have to pull. Gonna have to pull from my memory here. So the family of a deceased young college girl is suing the owner of a bar because they believed that the bar was responsible for their daughter's death. Basically, their daughter drove home drunk from this bar with one of her friends from college and drove off a bridge. The plaintiff is alleging, the defendant's mother or the defendant's estate, that the defendant bar shouldn't have been serving her alcohol because they knew she was a minor and that she was obviously intoxicated. The defendant's bar, actually, Sonali Mehta, Mehta right here, based off her.
Go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury, may it please the court. They served, they saw, and they still didn't care.
Who came up with the theme?
think it was a collaborative.
It was a collaborative combination. We like those like 3-part themes like that. So this is sort of based on one of our templates, but I wonder if did Eric or did Jacob think of that?
I think it was we came up with they serve they saw, and then we wanted the last one to be something that didn't care. I came up with the still, just so it would be 3 S's.
Right.
Yeah. Again, legally dubious.
Yeah. Yes.
On March 24th, 2 years ago, a 19-year-old girl named Jessica Marks was driving on the highway. She was drunk, losing consciousness, slurring her words. She couldn't
Something
see
that I'm
straight.
watching for is a lot of people online are like, one of the weird comments that was said in the impeachment was like, he takes long, deliberate pauses. And I was like, I do? What? So that's something I'm watching for. So if we see a long pause.
You do that.
Okay.
Seva was like known for this entire year, like the ever expanding time of his opening. Like we would time it in practice. It was like 4:40. And we get to the tournament, it's like 5:20 and the closer has to cut because Seva took 80 more dramatic pauses.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what happens when you're coached by the 7th best competitor in the country. You get really good at those dramatic pauses, and you get really incredibly clean, as we saw.
Suddenly, Jessica lost control of the wheel. The car went off a bridge and landed upside down at the bottom of a cliff. Jessica was dead. But members of the jury, today you're going to learn that Jessica's death could have been prevented.
I would like to say something. Because earlier we were talking about like the difficulty of P opens. I think that one of the things that teams miss, like easy points that teams miss out on all the time, is they start the P open with something other than the dramatic like center of the story. They'll start with other stuff. They might start with some like, I don't know, story or some kind of tangential phrase, and whatever. They go into like details. This is the first impression. No one knows anything about the case yet. You want to grab them, go directly to the dramatic thing that happened. So I think like Sonali's Open, we started with literally the defendant like injecting the elephant tranquilizer into I don't remember
whatever the dead guy's name was.
Yeah, the dead into the dead guy, and going all the way back to I think my senior year, Hendricks, we start with the attempted strangulation. You just start with what matters. You can get to the cheating or you can get to the over serving later. Start with the thing that people should care about. And I don't know why teams don't do this more, because that's how you draw people in.
Well, because they're not coached by Eric Roytman. That's why.
I mean,
of course. There it is.
Come on.
Just hours before she died, Jessica walked in to the defendant's bar. She was underage, but they didn't care. Instead, they gave her drink after drink for hours. She started slurring her words, but the defendant gave her another glass of wine. She couldn't walk straight, but the defendant gave her pints of beer. She told the defendant she was going to drive home, but the defendant poured her another shot. And when the defendant let that 19-year-old girl
stumble, that was one thing that I was always worried we were going to get called out on, was the timing of the green tea shot, because it's really not clear. I think there's it might have happened earlier in the night, might have happened later in the night, and we were always he gave it to her right as she was about to drive home, and no one ever called us out, so that's nice.
Yeah, so this isn't totally related to the green tea shop, but for all the drinks, the way it happened was actually in this apartment that I'm sitting in right now. One night Justin said, we got to take a bunch of photos of drinks we're at this bar, and to use as exhibits in the case. And so I have a balcony that right outside of my apartment here. And so I took a bunch of glasses and beers and whatever I had in my fridge, it just happened to be White Claws, but that's why that was in the case. IPA was one really specific IPA that just was in my fridge.
Right.
And when Bennett had it in the final round, I was like, how did he even get that? It's a random thing that someone brought to my apartment once. But anyway, so I brought them outside. I took a bunch of photos. I poured some out, moved things around to make it so that way it would look like time had passed or it was at different points in the night. And so we got the photos, and it was then my job to try to piece together a timeline based on the photos that I had taken. but I really hadn't put much thought into it as I was taking the photos. I was kind of just like pouring things out, moving this. I was like, oh, this will all make sense later.
That's funny. Someone will make sense of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And some like people did do some smart things. I thought like embed it in the final round in the cross that we watched in an earlier episode, did something really smart with it.
Right.
But it was in some places ambiguous at best. And so I feel you on that.
I was in a debate with my co-counsel about whether or not Jessica Marks was actually drunk when you filmed that video.
Yeah, Jacob. So the second chair, Jacob was like, I don't know. She doesn't seem that drunk. And me and Seva were both like, no, she seems drunk. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
No, it was the opposite. I was like, I think she might be acting. And Jacob,
you were the holdout.
I think she's actually drunk.
As someone who lives with her and lived with her that night after we stopped, she was definitely drunk.
Yeah. That's funny.
So.
Jessica never had a chance.
There's one of the pauses.
See, members of the jury, that's why Jessica's family is suing the defendant for wrongful death. See, the law says that when a bar knowingly sells alcohol to a drunk minor, and that minor dies because she was drunk, the bar is liable for her death. Now that means we have to prove it's more likely than not three things. First, that Jessica was obviously intoxicated, that the bar served her drinks anyways, and that the bar's action helped cause her death.
So you guys also always have very good slides. First off, I love Georgia font. I can tell that that's what that is.
That's our favorite. That's our favorite.
Georgia font is great. Number one. Who makes the slides for you guys?
So this slide is a Jacob Hervey, my freshman co-counsel original.
And my slides are all made by Seva. So
yeah.
I'm seeing this for the first time because I watched this trial from another room, just listening to it. And so I sort of knew what some of the demos look like, but I've never seen this before. It looks great.
It's a good demo.
So was it really difficult for you, Sonali? Like you and Seva lived together and he was competing from the same place where you were. Was it hard like to like hear what was happening, but not be able to really communicate with Seva and the rest of the crew?
Yeah, it was very frustrating because I'd hear them like talk about like, oh, this objection or that. And I was like, I know what you should say, but I like can't say anything. I'm just like hiding. So I basically was like playing like the like mom basically all weekend. Like I went and bought them food a bunch of times, like drove them around like to the printers to get the case printed, that kind of thing. But I couldn't say anything. I mostly didn't read the case, so I like would be less tempted and wouldn't really know like how to help substantively because yeah, it was definitely frustrating. But yeah, I don't know. I just like stayed in the other room. The whole like 24-hour prep, I was basically just like watching TV in my room while they were like out in the living room and that kind of thing. Yeah, it was frustrating because I've never been in that situation. Like any other time, if I'm like watching someone or whatever, I can just like, help or talk to them about it. And so it's hard to kind of sit on my hands. But
Eric, were you there too, or were you somewhere else?
I was in Ohio. I was like, so I spent this whole summer in my parents' basement studying for the bar, and this was like the one that I took. So they were in. It was the same situation as last year, where they were the competitor and second chair were in the same place together. And I think that's really helpful for them. But for me, it's much better for me to be able to evaluate over. So for all Zoom coaching, I don't need to see how you look in person. It doesn't matter. Like you can sound great in person, but it's irrelevant. And so it was better for me to coach over Zoom anyways. And so, yeah, that's how we did it.
And we'll meet that burden today by showing you that they served, they saw, and they still didn't care. So let's walk through those one by one. First, we'll show you how much alcohol the defendant served Jessica Marks. Today, you're going to hear from Jessica's best friend, Morgan Levin. Ms. Levin was with Jessica at that bar the whole night. She'll tell you that the defendant served Jessica an entire bottle of wine, multiple pints of beer, and shots. She'll tell you that Jessica was visibly drunk, but the bar kept serving her. Second, we'll show you that the defendant saw just how drunk Jessica got. You'll learn that the owner of the defendant bar, Sonali Mehta, saw Jessica lose her balance, heard Jessica slurring her words, and
it was like so weird for me to just keep hearing my name from the other room. And also like no shade. It's like, it's fine. It's hard to say, but Seva's like the only person. Actually, Justin says it right and Seva said it right, and pretty much no one else got it right all weekend. So just watching everyone butcher it the whole time.
Yeah, a lot of people say Meta.
Meta, yeah, a lot of Meta.
Or Meta, yeah. And then I helped a couple like gladiator teams, just like watching scrimmages and that kind of thing, and a lot of them were saying it wrong, so we tried to fix that whenever I saw somebody. But yeah, it was just kind of bizarre.
Yeah, I practiced it a bunch before this episode because I was like, I definitely would have messed it up if I didn't. And I'm just not going to say it during this episode because I don't already embarrass myself with one name. I'm not gonna.
No, it's you're good.
I'm not gonna take a chance.
To the alcohol on Jessica's breath. In fact, the defendant saw Jessica fall down the stairs because of how much she had been drinking. The defendant kept giving her more. Finally, we'll show you that the defendant.
I'd like to say something. I just seeing because like your gestures and your movements are so good here, and it's just
You sound so surprised.
You're like, what?
we were talking earlier about how like a lot of stuff you developed senior year, like that used to be like one of your biggest like hiccups, kind of way the way you so like Seva used to like when he was either like I guess like before this year he wasn't giving a speech, but when he would move between pockets on crosses, he would do this little like weird sideways crab,
like lunge. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like this, and like his shoulders would go up and down, and then like the hands were always weird, like they were always all over the place. And I don't know if we ever specifically like I just kept saying like don't do the crouching down so much, but it improved a lot. And I because like I guess during the year I see you competing so often, maybe I don't see like incremental changes, but like it improved a lot.
Yeah, the lunge is funny. It was like one of these, right? It was like
yeah, you don't really and like one of the things that's tough about Zoom mock trial is you want to be conscious of the fact that the judges are expecting you to make use of your space and be physical and things like that, but it's tough to do. And I think the strategy that some teams have employed as it relates to that is just like not doing anything. They're just like, well, we're in a bedroom, so like we're not moving. We're just going to stand here. So I do think
some people sit.
Some people sit, right? Which prevents you from moving.
Like
so I think one of the things that you did so well in this opening was making use of what I'm sure was limited space. And I'm sure that was one of the things that set you apart, not only throughout this tournament, but throughout the year.
Jessica slurring her words and smelled the alcohol on Jessica's breath. In fact, the defendant saw Jessica fall down the stairs because of how much she had been drinking. The defendant kept giving her more. Finally, we'll show you that the defendant just didn't care about the danger they were putting Jessica in.
Seva, you're a really loud competitor, and I mean that in like a good way. One of the things that when we're in person that I coach my students to do is to be loud, because, and it's interesting, like when we're in person, if you walk into a random round and you heard housekeeping, and one team was just louder than the other, usually it feels like they're better.
Yeah.
And so I would guess that was a pretty big advantage for you in an actual courtroom, whereas over Zoom maybe not so much because everyone's loud. Did you have to work at that to be louder and or are you being deliberately loud, or is that just kind of natural for you?
In truth, loudness has never been my issue. I think that my friends would say that I am a loud person, sometimes in a negative way. people would say that. But yeah, loudness has never been a problem for me. I just have like a sort of naturally loud voice. And on Zoom, it translates because we have these like good mics and things, and so they catch the sort of changes in tone.
Did you, given that you're a naturally loud speaker, did you find that you were spending more time working on the other stuff? So being slower, getting softer emphasis, things like that?
Right. So the reason I chose P is because like that seems to be what I'm good at. What I really had to work on throughout the year was getting those like soft moments. That was like we had to grind those. And I still think that I could have done better with those softer moments during that trial. And so one of the things we realized, which is interesting, is that like I sort of have two modes. I have like angry prosecutor, and then I have like sort of like casual, like the expert thing that I did. And so what we tried to do, I think, was instead of like doing what Sonali does, which is like sort of like sad, like sad soft voice, we replaced that for me with like sort of being like casual instead. And so that was one of the things we tried to do. Whether it worked, I'm not entirely sure. I still think I'm trying to become better at being softer. But yeah, you know, when I get into prosecutor mode, I'm just like, I'm you know, aggressive and angry, and it's sort of hard for me to like be soft, you know.
You'll learn that late in the night, Jessica told the owner of the defendant bar that she was going to drive home. When the owner heard that, she didn't call Jessica a taxi or tell her to take an Uber or even take her keys. No, instead, she poured Jessica another shot and then let her stumble out the door to her car. They just didn't care.
That's the tone that you're really good at.
I want you.
Not like really accusatory, like that person is scum for doing what they just did. Like it's funny because I think, like, politically we're all kind of like defense minded, like none of us want to be prosecutors, I don't think, but that is definitely what we're better at in mock trial.
Yeah, well, part of it is I think because the typical mock trial defendant is like not usually a nice person, and so it makes it easy. But yeah, I think like that 20-second part that we just watched is kind of a combination of all the things that have made Duke so good. The writing is so excellent, right? So instead of using something like she left and got into a car accident, the imagery of she stumbled out of a bar and into her car, like that subtle word choice, and it sounds like obvious, but not everyone is thoughtful about those subtle details.
And then let her stumble out the door to her car. They just didn't care. I want you to remember, we're here today because of Jessica Marks. As you sit throughout this trial, it might become easy to forget that Jessica was anything other than a college student who got too drunk one night. But you'll see that Jessica Marks was more than that. She was the daughter of a loving mother, a brilliant student with a bright future, and a good friend. When Jessica Marks died, she didn't get to graduate college. She didn't get to grow up, start a life of her own, or start a family. And members of the jury, we can't bring Jessica Marks back. But in the court of law, there's one thing we can do. We can give her family justice. We can do that.
Was that a line that you guys had used before? Is that one of your go-tos? It sounds like it will be a go-to for you guys.
It is a go-to.
I think I have pretty much the same rhetoric at the end of my open that we're about to watch. And I know we did it all year with Parker Page in that case.
This is also a great still shot of Seva. Mock trial memes for salty teams. Meme this, please.
There it is. Yeah.
There you go. Let's leave it up for a couple seconds. Take your screenshot.
They seem to do what you ask. So
I know they do. And I love them for it. They're my favorite group. They're the official sponsor of WatchMock.
By holding the people who caused her death accountable. That's why at the end of this trial, I'm going to come back up here and ask you to find Sonny's bar liable. Thank you.
So Sonali, he delivers that opening. You hear it from the other room. How are you feeling?
Good. I thought it was a great open. Yeah, and I had heard bits and pieces of all the different rounds. Like I wasn't always completely listening or able to hear depending on it. And so this round I heard the whole thing start to finish, and I was very nervous, obviously. And I was more nervous than when I'm competing because I can't do anything. I just simply can only sit and listen. But yeah, it was super, super solid open. I thought it was a great start.
Eric, was the plan executed here?
Yeah. No, now with in hindsight, that was very good opening. I'm very pleased with that. I never feel positively about anything during the round. I feel like everything is a disaster, and Zoom really made it worse because it gives me the freedom to pace around my room and text people about how terrible everything is going. And so like, I think Julia was with me like watching rounds, and I was just like pacing around my parents' basement, and like every little thing, every little flub, every moment is just like internal disaster in my head. And that is how I watch mock trial.
Yeah.
Very unhealthy.
Are your parents just like,
so-
what the hell is going on down there? Like, or by now are they like,
You've got to be used to it by now.
he's the 7th best competitor in the country. Like, let him do his thing down there.
They're kind of used to it because I also, when I coached, like last year when I coached like the OLT team and Sonali at TBC, I was like also in the basement, and I just like I'm by myself, so I'm just like yelling angrily, and then I'll come up. My parents would be like, "Are you okay? Like, did they do really badly?" And I'll be like, "Oh no, they won."
Like, no, they won the tournament.
At nationals.
Yeah, I was about to
So
say.
for nationals, Eric and Julia were living in Durham. We all were living in Durham. And so I went to their place to watch nationals. That way we could like watch both the A and the B team in their different rounds. And anything that happened, like an objection, even if they won the objection, but the judge said something kind of off or something, he literally is like, it's a disaster. Like, it's over. One mistake like that, the whole season down the drain. I was like, you need to relax. Like, he had said that he did this, but I've never seen it in person. It's like a tornado. Like, it's so ridiculous. Because also, once we find out how it went and they get the ballots, I'm like, you need to relax. Like, this is insane.
I feel you. It's one of the things about Zoom that I like is that I can basically say whatever I want without fear of repercussion to my team. I mean, repercussions for my personal life probably, but not like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Like that's true for me too. Like when I'm not on camera, like during Nats, I remember we had a round against like, I think it was Berkeley, and Juliana Mayer, one of our other counsel, she got an objection sustained, and I have never screamed so loudly. I was just like, yes. And I got a lot of complaints from our neighbors.
Really?
Yeah, like a decent amount. Yeah, so
Yeah,
I get it too. I get it too.
So now we're going to watch Sonali's opening from the 2020 Trial by Combat final. That, spoiler alert, stop the video now in case you haven't watched the final yet. Sonali won and was the TBC champion in 2020. Sonali, I actually have a foggy memory of what that case was about and what your theory was. So why don't you tell me and everybody else, remind us what that case was about and what your theory of the case was.
I certainly also have a foggy memory of it. It
I
was
remember a theme.
based, I don't even remember that. It was loosely based off of Tiger King. Not loosely. It was based off of Tiger King.
Yeah.
It was a guy died and his wife was the defendant, and she was being accused of, it was one of the more convoluted like murder plots. I think she was being accused of stealing an elephant tranquilizer from the elephant zoo that they ran, injecting him with it, and then putting his body in a car and like driving far away and dumping it into a swamp.
All right, let's get into this.
Let's do it.
I should say this is happening over my objection. I don't like this opening. I lost every single check mark to Sydney in this opening because it's not fun for me, but whatever.
Okay, that objection will be noted.
Objection overruled.
We're gonna watch the
Overruled.
video.
She planned, she poisoned, she profited.
There it is.
I hate this.
In August of 2017, the defendant, a woman
Sorry to
named
cut us off so
Tara-
quickly, but Sonali has a very, very distinct mock voice. She actually, for those of you online, she does not sound like that in person, but she goes into this mock voice and it's so distinct now that I'm hearing it. I haven't heard her do it in a while. That's my comment.
It's interesting though, because I hate the mock trial voice so much, and I don't think any of you have it. And I've seen you all compete. I don't think any of you do the mock voice. I really don't.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't
Thanks.
mean like the generic mock voice. I mean like
Fair.
she like goes into this like mode, you know. Yeah.
Oh, like a different voice.
I have a different
that's right.
voice. Yeah.
You
I
know,
also like,
you know the voice I'm talking about. Like,
Yes, we do.
no voice.
We do.
it's
Yeah.
also like funny to watch these like his and then mine, because obviously time was the other way around and there was a year of learning how to do Zoom in between. Like there's so many things that are so annoying about, like, I hate my setup. It's horrible. You can't see me. Like the angle is wrong.
No, so like this
a million
is
things I do differently.
yeah. So right, this is the Sonali points out this is in reverse chronological order how we're watching this. Like, it's not like she saw Seva set up. She's like, you know how you have like a really clear background and you can see you and hear you perfectly.
I want to not do that.
I want a spiral staircase.
All right, let's have a bookcase in the background and let's like make the video be less clear.
We had like kind of like a reckoning, like a mid-season reckoning at Duke. Because we were basically, so like, Sonali won TBC and then like also OLT. We thought like, okay, we have online figured out. But the one thing that started happening throughout the year is like teams got really good at like having a setup that like allowed you to clearly see people's faces and hear them, the blank background, waist up kind of deal with good lighting. And we were slow to adjust to that. And I think we only adjusted to it after we like scrimmaged UCLA. And like they were really good, and we were like, "Oh, we need to change." I think Seva like emailed their president. It might have been Audrey. Do you know Audrey?
It was Camille.
Yeah, okay. They were super nice about it too.
Yeah,
they like gave us advice on the tech, whatever, like the lights they bought and stuff. And like it seems obvious, but it's actually not when you're like before you transition. Like it's Seva's opening score, as just as an example, went up by a lot just by switching the setup.
A lot of teams, like if you watch Top Gun 2020. Teams were like, let's find the most like lawyerly background we can find. Like, let's find like, like a nice plant and like a bookcase in the background. Like, let's have whatever on the wall. And so I think teams were slow to the plain background, clear setup, like Eric said, waist up kind of view, which I think this year we'll see pretty much, especially in the college circuit, like uniformity in that respect.
Yeah. Well, I think for us at the beginning, it was like, I did well. I had a bad background. It must not be that important, but that like quickly became not true. And also just in the timeline, right when TBC happened, it was like summer, like there was a lot, obviously like the pandemic was much newer, and I think like things were up in the air for a lot of people, and that was like more at the forefront of everyone's mind, that like, oh, everyone's not going to have like even like a suit with them at home, or like the right background or whatever. And then as it went on longer and longer, that like that sort of like presumption of, oh, it's okay, like don't worry, sort of went away, as everyone got more used to doing everything on Zoom. So
Bassett was tired of fighting with her husband. See, her husband, Don Clark, was a wealthy businessman who owned multiple properties and businesses, including a zoo. Miss Bassett wanted control over those properties, but her husband wouldn't give it to her. So she decided to take matters into her own hands. On the night of August 18th, 2017, the defendant crept up next to her.
It was like the end of the world. Like when it happens in your final round, like I didn't know I was doing one last time. So what feels like the last competition, like maybe ever, it's like that normally doesn't happen. Like I've given a million openings. I never do that, and then it like happens in that round. And I'm like, this is the worst thing. Like
didn't matter.
Yeah, I know, but still, it's hard not to be hard on myself watching it back.
Stabbed him with a needle and injected him with a deadly poison.
That was a good injection gesture, so we're gonna watch that back.
The defendant crept up next to her husband, stabbed him with a needle.
That looks like that would have hurt. Like I don't think that's how you're supposed to administer an injection, Sonali. Like if you
it's a murder injection. What do you mean?
Yeah, she was doing that to kill.
Wait a minute. The thing that kills the person is the thing in the injection, not the
I'm saying they're clearly like not trying to make it not hurt or something, like a nurse. Like they don't care.
They're like, I want to kill him. I don't want him to be in pain.
This is what Eric was saying. I think like maybe people are scared to do the most dramatic part in the opening because there's no actual evidence of it, right? Like this is just storytelling. It's like you're not going to hear any witness say this, but it's still the most dramatic part, and it's like the overall story, and so it's still worth doing, I think.
Right. I mean, this is what the evidence was going to show. And while it wasn't explicit in the case, like this was your argument, and so I thought this was the right choice.
August 18th, 2017. The defendant crept up next to her husband, stabbed him with a needle, and injected him with a deadly poison. In seconds, Mr. Clark was dead, and the defendant had access to his entire fortune. Members of the jury, that's why we've charged the defendant with murder. It's our job to prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt.
Like half bottle. Like, I had no space to take a step forward, so I stepped forward too far and then had to rock backwards because the top of my head got cut off.
Did you notice your head was cut off and you're like, I got to fix this?
Yes, I did.
Good call.
Because I realized I came up too far. Like we'd sort of mapped it out, but I maybe should have put tape on the floor or something.
So I have one critique for you, and it's not specific to the opening. Here's the critique. I would have tried to find a way to work those steps into the material. I don't know how you would have worked it in, but I would have, like, if I was in this setup and I would have, like, we're walking up the steps. I don't know how we're going to work it into.
That's funny.
The steps.
The stairs.
I wasn't wearing shoes during this, and maybe if I'd done that, it would have forced me to wear heels, which I would not have been happy about. So
yeah, that's a good point. With critique withdrawn.
It intentionally caused the death of Mr. Clark. Members of the jury, we're going to meet that burden today by showing you that the defendant planned for this crime. She poisoned her husband, and then she profited off of his death.
Really subtle gesture there, but I don't want it to get lost. I liked how you did you did a very like non-offensive gesture, like something with your hands, but you did 1, 2, 3. Obviously something very deliberate. So I want to watch it again.
By showing you that the defendant planned for this crime. She poisoned her husband, and then she profited off of his death. I'm going to walk through each of those one at a time.
one of the good things about having this like 3-part structured, like we have the template ahead of time is I don't spend any time thinking about the gestures. You know, like we didn't talk about it at all. Like it's just like it's the same as other things that I've done, and so I can just sort of go for it.
We'll hear that the defendant planned for this crime. See, today you're going to see a very important legal document. That's Mr. Clark's power of attorney. This document explains that if Mr. Clark were to disappear, Miss Bassett would gain control over all his properties, all his businesses, his entire $8 million fortune. With that plan set, you'll hear how the defendant knew she had to make her husband disappear. So she poisoned him. Today, you're going to learn about a deadly chemical that was kept on property at the Clark Zoo, where they both lived and worked. You'll hear that this chemical was so dangerous, so lethal that just a few drops could kill a human being. You'll learn that the defendant had access to a box filled with needles and syringes and this chemical. And when she was asked by the police if she knew how this chemical could be lethal to a human being, she just laughed.
That was one thing that this was an Eric find that I didn't, at least in the tournament here, anyone else pick up on. And it's like one of those things where if anyone actually put the deposition on the screen, it like doesn't seem that damning that she laughed, because she was like, she laughs and then they're like, what? And she's like, oh, it's just, yeah, it's really deadly. Like, I know that. Like, she said something really normal afterwards. And I was like, I don't know about this, Eric. Like, I feel like we're going to get called out on it. And he was like, no, this is great. Like, we're doing it. And it worked. No one ever like crossed or did anything with it. And I think it like comes off pretty bad.
It was one of my favorite like parts of the direct too, or like we just so how did the defendant react when you said it was super deadly? And the cop goes, she just laughed. Yeah, that sounds terrible.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
it's really bad. I'm not even sure like how that would play out. Like a murderer is like, did you know that this like thing was deadly? And they're just like, ha ha ha.
Like, if you reenact it, sounds ridiculous. Like,
right. It sounds really bad though in context, like without context.
You'll learn what the defendant did to ensure she got her profit. See, members of the jury, the defendant knew if she got caught, she would lose everything, every last cent. So after poisoning her husband, she drove his body to a swamp, more than 100 miles away. And then she waited. You'll see that she didn't call the police.
So one of the things that I'm noticing that's different about Sonali's opening versus Seva's is in this one, there's a lot of you'll see, you'll hear, you're going to learn. And in Seva's, you guys kind of abandoned that language. Was there a reason for that?
Oh, interesting.
I don't know if we ever thought about that, but it's true. I mean, I think it's like there may be a difference in like your tendency, like your kind of performative tendencies. So like Seva, you give like a more aggressive opening, and Sonali's is more like soft.
Right.
maybe that lent itself to that, but I don't know. I mean, there's
Also,
not really
something that may or may not actually be on the script. Like TBC was so quick to memorize that I know I didn't get it word for word what was on our script, and so I just throw it in when I'm saying it. The other thing is that this case is different because the police is such a fact-heavy witness. So when I'm saying like you'll hear, like I know that in 2 seconds the cop is gonna lay out every single fact that I'm saying. Whereas who was the P witness? It was the friend, right? Who's not as like it's not as cut and dry on the facts, I feel like.
Yeah. I think that the most obvious answer to me is that like that's just sort of like a vocal insert that probably Sonali does that I didn't do.
Work on it all season.
Call her husband or text her husband for an entire week when she claimed her husband was missing. Members of the jury, that plan almost worked. See, the FBI was never able to recover Mr. Clark's body. But as you'll hear from Agent Steph Johnson when she takes the stand, the defendant left other evidence behind. Forensic evidence tying her to that swamp, phone records exposing her cover-up, and GPS evidence showing us exactly where she went on that night.
So Sonali, you mentioned your police officer witness that was in this final round. I think the witness that you selected was Bree Goodchild. Am I right about that?
Well, I selected
Well,
Dan
it was
Peel.
Dan Peel first.
Oh, right.
And
right.
then
Tell that story.
Yeah, okay. So Justin says like you're gonna have to choose who you want to witness for you in the final before the semifinal. And so I spent not a half second thinking about it. I was like, whatever, like I gotta focus on the semifinal. I knew I was going up against Matt Bestman, who was gonna be amazing. It was just too far ahead for me to be thinking about. And so when we get there and he's like, all right, you gotta pick a witness, we had talked about it for like 2 seconds probably. And Dan is someone who I like had scrimmaged a bunch of times, knew he was like not gonna say anything objectionable. I think he was my witness earlier in the competition. Yeah. And so I was like, that's the easiest thing. And so I like, just asked right there. I had not asked him beforehand. And as soon as I asked him, I see Sydney like turn to the side and whisper something or like say something. And he comes on screen and is like, I'm already with Sydney. And I think I said yikes. Like, right. I don't know where the audio is, but I think I just went yikes because I was like, what do? Like, my brain short circuited. And then Justin made like a Bachelor joke about like tough rose ceremony or something, which is so funny. But yeah, and so for a second I was like totally like blanked out. I was like, I have no clue what to do. Like my brain is not really functioning.
Yeah, and then
right now.
we like quickly talked for a minute and then we decided on Bree.
Which was great because
she
was also my witness earlier or something like that. Or I directed her as a cop in a scrimmage that we did, and she's like great. Like she really comes off as real. And yeah, so it totally worked out. Bree was amazing. But yeah, in the moment, I was just like, what the hell? Like, why is this happening right now?
You have a grudge against Dan Peel for forever? Is that?
Yeah, we're enemies, actually. Enemies.
And it's different now because now there's definitely like an established practice of like everyone figures out who their witness is probably by like round 4. So they're like, people will text
like you asked ahead of time, right?
I asked ahead of time. Someone asked me, like everyone is like figuring out who that is ahead of time. So now there's like a practice of that, but we didn't know,
like pre-tournament or like if you're doing well in the tournament and you're like, I'm in it.
Tournament, yeah. If you're doing well in the tournament, like, yeah.
Like pre-semis, I think.
Like going into like, I think we did it going into round 4.
Right.
No.
Because it was going to be Travis, and that was your round 4 witness. So it's after.
Yes, right. It was after round 4. I asked Travis to do it. That's what happened. Yeah.
Members of the jury, today the evidence will show the defendant planned for this crime. It'll show she poisoned her husband and that she walked away with a profit. Plan, poison, profit. Those are the reasons that Don Clark isn't here with us today.
I think that was a up, wasn't it? That was a mess up. I think I was supposed to say plan, poison, profit. That's murder, right? Isn't that Eric?
I think it was supposed to be that's murder.
Yeah.
Reasons that at the end of this trial, I'm going to come back up here and ask that you find Miss Bassett.
Oh no! Oh, it's so bad too. It's so egregious.
Oh my God.
Also, in 4 years, I don't think I've ever done that. Like I've never gone up there and said like, find her guilty. Oh, I mean, not guilty. Like it just doesn't happen. I don't know. I was like sleep deprived and freaking out. But honestly, when I sat down, I was like, it's over. Like, because we always talk about with the opens, like you have to, like we said, we think opens are the most important thing. And we always talk about like, you want that last moment to be like goosebumps. And then you sit down and like, that's how you get the 10 or that's how you get the check mark, whatever. And I was like, I'm not going to get it. And I'm sure Eric is like screaming right now. Like,
so at the time I was screaming, but that's because I knew, well, like also I was like waiting for that's murder, plan, poison, prop, that's murder. And I was like, this is going to be so good, right? And so you didn't say that, which is not actually a problem because it still sounded good and no one knows the script.
Oh no, yeah.
And then the Clark, then the wrong name. I was like, oh no. But now watching it back, like it was really good.
It's a really good open, yeah.
And like that at the end there, that's like what we were talking about with like you went fast, and then at the very end you went soft, and you went like matter of fact and soft, and that is like that's how you do it. And it's hard to teach that. I don't really know how to like teach that tonal shift down exactly, but it was very good.
Let's watch back. Go ahead,
it's
Sonali.
better than I remember it. Because in my memory, the only thing I remember is that messing up and then losing it.
It's really good.
So yeah, I'm glad there's like some stuff that's not awful, but still, I think like not that Sydney's was amazing. Also, like who knows how it would have come out if I had not done that, but especially doing that, I like
I really don't think anyone cared.
I don't know. Maybe you could be right.
I mean,
I feel like it's not conscious, like, oh, because of that, I'm going to give it to the other person, but it's just like the overall impression of it. It's like taken down a notch, I think.
Yeah, maybe. I think everyone, you quickly corrected yourself. It wasn't and I think those subtle mess ups, because one of the rules that I've decided is I can't curse, but my guest can. Mess ups is, like if you say like beyond a reasonable doubt versus preponderance of the evidence, like that's like the round is over if you mess that up. But like you mess up a name, I kind of think it's generally fine. And I think the evidence tells us that I'm right because you won the round. So
well, it would have been better had that not been the very last thing I said. I did notice that the first two, like the 2018 and 2019 finals, I watched getting ready for TBC, and there's lots of like vocal flops, like way more than you're used to seeing out of these people, and really like that you're used to seeing in the regular season. And I it's obviously having been through it, like it's because it's very difficult to memorize everything and get it all, get it together quickly, keep it all straight in your brain. There's less this year because I think people figured out how to read off screens and didn't have to memorize as much because everyone seemed much cleaner this year.
Yeah, one of the things we had to make that you make a judgment on is like if you have two great opens and one of them has flubs, then that one flubs usually loses. So like that's why those things like matter, Yeah,
I think maybe, but like I think you're also losing sight of all the other stuff that's important, which is performance, obviously. And then we've talked a lot about performance so far with both openings, but I think what's made you guys so successful the last bunch of years, at least in the rounds that I've seen, is you have really good content, particularly in the speeches. And like, don't lose sight of the fact that these are real lawyers who sometimes don't care about the performance. I mean, I think 9 times out of 10, that's the determinative factor is the way it's performed, not what you say. But sometimes it's that. And I think the content in both speeches that we just watched were really, really good.
I also think the TBC judging pool is a little bit different than the average like AMTA judging pool. So like during AMTA regular season, we emphasize being clean a lot because oftentimes like normal judges at tournaments like aren't paying super close attention, and they will like hone in on some mistake and use it as like the differentiating factor, or they're not even paying attention to such high level stuff because like I don't know, maybe they just don't have as much experience in high level mock trial. At TBC, it's all these like it's either like it's a lot of former TBC competitors too, or like former gladiator people, and I think they care more about higher level things like whatever content reactivity, all that stuff. And I don't think they care as much about like being clean because it's like a small kind of like, it's not that you shouldn't be clean, but it's like a lower level thing. And so I think TBC judging pool cares less.
You guys mentioned reading, and I think at Combat and Top Gun, it's a little more forgivable for obvious reasons. Did you guys see a lot of teams reading during the season?
Yes.
What's your take on it?
I think our take on it is
I would say Eric and I have a different take on it because we were coaching and we didn't know it was happening
We found
until
out,
the
yeah.
very end of the season, like after nationals. Actually, we were at dinner after like round 3 of nationals, and the team was like, yeah, no, everyone's been reading. But he, as someone competing, I think has a different opinion.
Like I'm sort of mixed on it, because like I think that if it's not noticeable, it usually makes it better mock trial if people aren't like stunted in their ability to do that, right? Like if you're not just like reading the script and you don't change the way you ask questions, or you don't like adapt to what's being said, then of course it's going to be bad. But it does help a lot of like people who are less good at memorizing, like just like get up to that like level of other people. And like do better and not have to worry about that. And instead they can focus on performance and focus on that, and, you know, adaptation, and focus on their objections instead of like worrying whether they're going to remember their next question. With that said, I think that a lot of the teams who have been doing that this year are going to be ill-fated when it comes to in-person.
Yeah.
Sonali and Eric, you guys are coaches. Were you telling your students once you found out? I guess it was too late by then, but had you known, would you have said, hey, stop reading, someone's going to see that we're reading and we're going to lose points? Or would you have said it's fine?
I mean, since I never noticed them reading, I guess I wouldn't have said that was a problem. I think the general advice I would have given is like, if I can tell, or if a judge can tell, then that's bad. If you're not being reactive, that's bad. And you're screwing yourself for next year, because one of the most important skills in mock trial is like being able to memorize quickly. It's so important. Like, or just, it doesn't even have to be necessarily memorizing a precise script, but being ready to just go up there with nothing, you know, not with nothing in front of you, and being able to put on like a smooth performance.
I think it's bad reading. And I don't know what tournaments are going to do. I guess the first thing is, separate from whether it's fair, unfair, I think 9 times out of 10, it's obvious. Mm-hmm. And like Sonali, like Seva said a second ago, those teams are going to be in trouble if it's obvious. And setting aside the idea that you're not going to be prepared for when we're hopefully at some point back in actual courtrooms. But I think that tournaments should take a harder stance on this. For example, the tournament that Drexel is hosting in September, that by the time this has come out has hopefully happened and was good. I'm going to instruct the judges that you should consider that. Like we have noticed that people over the last year are reading, and you should consider that in your scores, just as if they were standing there with a legal pad in their hand the whole time. Like it's the same thing. And that's not the way. Like if this were a real courtroom, a real jury and certainly scoring judges in a mock trial would consider that. And so I hope that tournaments take a hard stance on that, because you're not really evaluating anything of significance if people are reading. Yeah. So we're going to take a hard stance on that. My guess is we're going to be the only tournament that takes a hard stance on that. Maybe I'll be a trendsetter, probably not, but
it could be. I think it's compelling. I mean, you're right. It's the same as like using a legal pad.
Right.
I'm interested to see how it goes. Like, it's possible you'll have judges who are trying to be like reading cops based on that instruction, and then they're like looking for reading, and maybe they'll find it when a person's just clean and isn't reading.
You know what? Like if they're doing that instead of like scrolling through Twitter, that's cool.
That's better.
Right? Like, that's cool.
Yeah, because maybe they'll listen to the content. Yeah.
Right. So we'll see. I mean, maybe it won't work. I also think, and I'm sure this is more of a thing in AMTA than it is in law school, but like I really applaud invitationals that are trying things. Mm-hmm. Right. For example, if way back when Baylor didn't try this checkmark thing, we wouldn't be doing it at Trial by Combat, because Baylor tried it and it worked. Right. So tournaments, like there's a lot of law school tournaments that are trying new things. There's tournaments that are doing like 7 preliminary rounds with 1 judge. And that way, like it's less, in some ways it's less arbitrary. I mean, sometimes it is because it's 1 judge, but like more rounds, more experience. There are tournaments that were like Justin Bernstein's tournament is doing interrogatories. Like you can, during the prep, you can ask clarification questions, and then he's going to create a new exhibit that's interrogatories to the parties where your questions get answered. And then like, so there's no issue with invention of fact, or there shouldn't be, because you can ask anything you want. Right. So
I like I've heard in law school tournaments, like you can do motions, like you can do like a J-Mall or something like that. And I don't know. I never actually competed in a law school mock trial, but if I did, I would have really enjoyed that.
Yeah, so you do them, and that's common. Like, in fact, I'd say if you don't do one in law school, it's kind of frowned upon. Like, someone will comment at the end, like, "Why didn't you make a mid-trial motion?" And they're like, "Because this isn't real, and it's not going to get granted."
Right.
And my opponent's going to make their closing argument at halftime in front of all of you, and I don't want that because you have to do it to check the box. So it's a thing in law school, but I don't. I wish it weren't a thing. It's kind of dumb. It's a waste of time, but whatever. We can't be perfect, I guess.
I mean, I like the idea of like even like a pretrial motion, or I guess I don't know how this would work at all, but it's interesting. Like if you could get creative with like motions. I mean, I think we get pretty creative with like objection arguments, and that, you know, I don't know if in real life you're supposed to get that creative with like standing objections where you're just talking. But like I know in real life that you will make whatever pretrial motions to like exclude evidence, and that can be, it's written and it's like more complicated. Like I would be really interested in doing that in mock trial context.
Yeah, that's a thing in law school. I mean, as I'm sure some of you know, and I think it's more realistic. I think it tests the actual advocacy rather than it makes the trial better because you get rulings on things. It doesn't become unrealistic. Like this evidence has come out that would never actually have come out, and the jury's now heard it. Like it makes things a little more true to what a real trial looks like. And it allows for more creativity. You can bring creative motions and things like that. And so I don't know that would work in AMTA because there's just so many witnesses. But if you could find a way to do it where it was short enough to where the trials wouldn't be too long, I think that would be cool.
Yeah.
So this was a lot of fun. I don't think I asked you at the beginning, Seva. I think you said you just took the LSAT. Are you planning on following either Sonali or Eric to their respective law schools, or what's the plan? Where are you going?
If they'll take me, I don't know. I got to apply. Yeah. I got my fingers crossed for something good, but I'm not sure.
Do you think you want to compete in law school, or do you think you're going to stay in the undergraduate circuit?
Yeah, I like mock trial. I think I want to keep competing. Definitely.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think I was very sad after my last college round, and I was like, it's over. But it wasn't over.
Yeah,
it's actually a lot more. I actually liked it better.
You did?
I think I did. Yeah, I did like it better. It's more true to what a real trial looks like and less about gamesmanship and theatrics. I mean, there's some of that, but it's not as much of that, which I all the bad stuff about AMTA is not present in law school. Now there's a lot of bad stuff about law school too that AMTA does better, but there's a lot of cool things about it that I think you guys will enjoy if you do it.
That's something to look forward to.
For sure. And I mentioned that Duke has been one of the best, if not the best programs in the country over the last bunch of years. And you can look down the list of the accolades the program has accrued. I think the most impressive one is having two teams in the top 5 of their divisions at nationals last year. I mean, that is unheard of. And to even get two teams in nationals is like incredibly difficult. Drexel did it for the first time in school history this year at the law school level. And it's even more competitive in AMTA. But getting two teams in the top 5 is incredible. Eric is now one of 2 coaches ever to have 2 students in the playoffs of combat. The other is Hall of Famer Toby Heighton. So that's good company to be in, I think.
That's definitely.
And the list goes kind of on and on. Sonali and Seva, what makes Eric such a good coach? Why has the program done so well under him?
I would like to say that getting 2 teams to nationals this year, the second team was Sonali and it was Julia. They coached that team, was all freshmen. It was a feat of coaching that was not really on me. So just to clarify, now if you want, you can talk about me. But
it's funny because anytime anything happens, it's like another TBC semifinalist, Eric Roytman, like another 2 teams to nationals, Eric, like everything. Like I won all the things last summer. I was like, Eric is amazing. Which he deserves a lot of the credit, but it's so funny to me because it just happens all the time, but mostly deserved.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely no, in terms of the B team this year, as the most successful B team that I have been around, and I had very little to do with it. It was a team of all freshmen that they coached up, and props to you.
In fact, we took content from them.
Yeah. It was actually, it's not supposed to be like that, but the A team later in the year was taking content from the B team because the B team was coming up with better stuff than we were.
What's the secret sauce?
I think that now that I've ragged on him, I actually think that, Eric really did transform Duke Mock Trial when he got here, and is like behind a lot of, if not like all of the successes. I think like there's lots of philosophy things about the program that he brought that have really made a difference. So like, some of the things like we've mentioned, like the importance of opens or like being memorized for practices. But I think the main thing is like, it used to be kind of a Duke like cool to like rag on mock trial, and like it was like nerdy if you were too into it or something. And that culture has really changed. Like now it's like a place that everyone wants to spend time, and we spend more time than we used to, but it's because like the culture is now like, no, it's really cool. Like it's cool to care about this. And like, we all really do care about it, and, spend a lot of time and want to be around each other and want to work hard. And so like, as a result, everybody does work harder and we're better. So it's lots of like small, specific like mock trial or coaching things, but that's the big culture thing that I think Eric has really helped happen at Duke. That is, been a big reason for a lot of the success. Unclear.
It's a bit of a transition because like the original plan was like I wasn't going to help very much at all this year because I'm going to start working, and I think once I start working I probably will take some time off. But now that it's looking like it might be more in line, I definitely will be helping out until I start work, and then we'll see. But it's transitioning to more of like a model led by some of the best students that we had last year.
Well, as someone who has a full-time law practice and is the competition director at a big law school and is now the host of a very popular
and successful
show,
popular successful YouTuber. Yes, absolutely.
Very successful YouTuber. You can do it, Eric. And I think there's going to be a lot of people at Duke who are very unhappy with you if you leave. So
it's tough, like it's just like I invest a lot of time into it, and I'm very attached to the program now. So it's hard to, it's hard to transition on, even to like take on less control. But I'm very proud of what we built, and I have a good feeling about how they're going to be. And I'll still be around to help. It just won't be the same kind of hands-on coaching that I've had.
There's not much room for you guys to, you've already kind of been to the mountaintop in lots of ways. What's the goal this year? Like, what did you win everything? Like, what do you do next?
I don't know. My goal is never winning. I like winning, but I feel like if I make it about winning, then I'm being a bad coach, because then I care too. Like I already am like naturally predisposed, like care way too much when we lose. And I don't want to like get mad at people because we didn't win. If that's like, it's probably related to something they did, right? But it's not like a conducive way of explaining that. So my goal is generally for like people to work hard, people to enjoy mock trial, and like for us to be good. Good is a whole kind of tier on its own in AMTA, and like there's every year there's like 10 teams that could probably win nationals, and you need like specific stuff to break right. And as long as you're in that tier, like that's all you can ask for, because besides that, there's no way for me to control the judges that we get, or like the matchups that we get. Like sometimes you get a harder schedule, sometimes you get bad judges, like you just do. And so I don't know, my goal is for them to continue to enjoy it and continue to work as hard as they did these last couple of years.
Well said.
Yeah.